Hello, everybody. This is Jay Fidell here on KGU, ThinkTech, Hawaii, broadcasting on technology and media here on Technology and Media Wednesdays. You know, film is so important in Hawaii. It's one of those idea things, that the governor talks about. It's intellectual property. It's something we can do without wrecking the environment. It's something we can do in happiness and creativity and all that great innovation stuff we always wanted to do. It's perfect for Hawaii. So why don't we have a huge, big film industry? Why do we only have a little tiny film industry? And we're going to find out today. We're going to talk to a professor, Madame le Professeur, at the ACM, which is known to its friends as the Academy for Creative Media. We're going to find out where it is, what it does, who's there, what the kids are learning there, and how you can get in and learn about film and make a uku bucks. It's not Hollywood, it's Hawaii wood, okay? You heard it here on ThinkTech. Anyway, let me welcome to the show Marlene Booth, Madame la Professeur.
Merci.
Nicely done. Thank you for being with us, Marlene.
Thank you for inviting me.
And my co-host, Mildred Schwartz. Thank you so much for coming down.
Aloha. How are you guys today? I'm so excited to be here, representing the Junior League of Honolulu.
Of course.
Thank you.
And we're going to do a lot more with you, Mildred. It's coming soon.
We're excited.
Yeah, I know. It's great. I'm excited for you. And so is David Day, our Thursday man. And so is Kayla Rosenfeld. I'm sure you had a nice lunch with her.
Kayla's
right?
an amazing person. We really got along great.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that you're wearing your white gloves today and your pearls.
Thank you for that.
Well, Junior League, where,
Oh, that's right. The Junior League.
We have to make you fit in.
Beware of the Junior League.
No. We're
Anyway,
a great organization.
I want to go top down. Top down is always the news. Kayla Rosenfeld taught me that. And the first thing, of course, is to turn off the phone. I want to go top down and talk about the news. So the first thing is we had a program, a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, at the Plaza Club. It was the Hawaii Venture Capital Association and ThinkTech, one of our regular Thursday luncheon programs, panel program. And Marlene, you were on that program.
I was.
You were on one of the two panels. You were on the creativity panel, which I think was perfectly appropriate for you. So I'd like to get your feedback. And how did that go? How do you feel it went? How did you feel the panelists presented? How did you feel the audience responded? What did you take away from that?
I learned a lot at that panel. I felt as though there was a lot of passion in the room, both from the people on the panel who were from various parts of the film industry in Hawaii, and various parts of the creative side too. And I felt a lot of enthusiasm for the film industry to grow here. And for us not to in any way bury our heads in the sand and say we aren't here. We are here, and we can't. And I guess I felt a lot of enthusiasm for turning off your phone, Jay.
Well, isn't that one of the first things that you did whenever you were at this panel?
When at the panel, when I go into my classrooms, I say to my class, "Turn off your phones
I'm really
all the way."
beat up here.
Okay, Jay is being naughty today.
It's well deserved.
Thank you. Thank you.
The professor will take your phone now.
Well, anyway, so now, there were issues raised, and
yes,
I think
sure.
if I have to remember back to the way it went, I would say the one issue, the takeaway point that gave me some concern, and it sounded right, was that the film industry isn't together. I mean, they're all walking their separate tracks.
Right.
They're not collaborating, and if they collaborated, it would be different and better. Do you agree?
In part. I mean, there was a lot of, I think, people saying that there's a great willingness to collaborate and not, at the moment, a central something to pull everything together. Yeah.
Do you feel it's a lack of communication maybe that's going on within the community?
In part, it felt as though people don't quite know with whom to communicate. So it's not. I didn't sense an unwillingness on the part of anybody, but rather the sense of how you go from A to B to C is not quite clear.
Right.
And if it were clearer, I think things would move more smoothly and with a sense of mission. People have as I said, the passion to move forward. The question is, how do we do it?
Right. And that's why you're here today, to talk about
why
how
I'm
to
here.
do all of this.
Yes,
awesome.
right.
One thing I noticed, and it just dawned on me, I had forgotten, is that with all that discussion of the film industry and all the people and players and companies and organizations and opportunities, there was no film association here.
Right.
Zero.
Right.
Which is extraordinary. I mean, take every industry you can think of.
Right.
And it's got a trade association where everybody rallies around. So you say, well, it's hard to get from A to B. Well, maybe it's because there's no professional organization for the industry.
It may be. I don't know what other cities have. There's certainly lots of professional organizations of people who are on the technical side. There are unions, and unions for actors. So the actors may be together, the technicians may be together, the truck drivers may be together. The state now has its offices back. But besides projects, what that mechanism is for all of us to come together, I think is a little bit unclear.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We try to achieve a candor. Mm-hmm. And if somebody needs to get beat up, sorry, I don't mean to use that in a pejorative way. I mean, if somebody needs to get straightened out in these programs, we want to see that happen. And we did have a program, the most recent program, only last week, about the Jones Act, where they really let go on each other. And everybody came up and said, whoa, that's what we really need. We need to have a good street fight, or food fight anyway.
The food fight sounds way more fun.
I didn't feel that there was a food fight going on in the film program.
No, not at all.
I think everybody was doing kumbaya.
Yeah.
And
so then there's just a disconnect between the separate organizations.
Yeah, there's a huge willingness to move forward, and I think someone feels as though they want the gun to be shot off at the starting line.
Yes.
So there's a bit of a sense that whatever mechanism it would be, the state, the business community, the creative community, who has the power to say, let's get going and we believe in this and we back you, isn't quite there yet in the way it may be in other locales.
But there has to be a consensus. Everybody has to rise up and say it's X.
Yeah.
It's Mildred Schwartz.
It's
She's
Jay
the one
Fidell.
we're waiting on her to
He
lead
needs
us
to shoot that
out
gun.
of the swamp. And people don't do that.
No.
Right? It's a Hawaii style. They just never do
Yeah,
that.
maybe
It's
that-
all about leadership.
And if they do it to you, I would be very concerned for you.
Well, you'd be the first person I'd call, Jay.
Anyway, so, okay. I
Yeah.
mean, do you think we should do the program again, Marlene? And if so, how differently?
Whoa, that catches me by surprise. I don't know. Throw out a creative project there and let people respond to how they would work on it. What would it look like?
Case study.
Yeah, case study, collaboration.
Yeah.
What avenues would they put it out on?
Well,
right there in
that's
the room.
part of what we'd look at
Okay.
too, right, these days. I think, yeah, right.
Well, you were sui generis. I mean that in the nicest possible way.
It's not a comment on my clothes, huh?
Nor your food. No, you were sui generis.
Chop sui generis, right?
You were in your own category because you were the only teacher from ACM there.
That's true.
And
That's true.
that sort of gave you kind of a different angle and
Yes.
a different aura, in dealing with the issue. But we had producers and directors. We didn't have I was trying to get Grace Park up there. Couldn't get her.
Right.
But we had them from all over the place,
Yes.
and I found it interesting that some of them didn't even know each other.
Yeah. But that's the way that we're balkanized a bit. It's partly the way the industry is, and perhaps partly the way the industry is in Hawaii.
Yeah. Let's move on to some other news stuff. You presented at a panel I was lucky enough to attend about international film and the law, and you presented on To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, Marlene, I was just transfixed with your presentation.
Well, thank you,
I'm
Jay.
remembering it till today, how you analyzed that movie. It was just fabulous.
Well, thank you very much.
And let me just tell you, this is really funny that you did this and that we found out about it because our book club for the Junior League, that was their latest book.
Oh, To Kill a
Was To Kill a
Mockingbird.
Mockingbird,
Oh, good choice,
I'm concerned.
Mildred. Good choice.
So, as I recall, the bottom line of it was this young girl
Yeah.
whose name was Scout.
Yes.
And Scout, I used the term porte-parole. She carried the message.
Yes.
Scout was probably as important as Gregory Peck or
Yes,
more.
I think she was. Yes. And one of the things that I talked about were the parallel stories that were going on in To Kill a Mockingbird. There's both the search for justice carried out by Gregory Peck as the lawyer representing a black man who's wrongly accused of accosting a woman, and there's the learning that's going on on the point of view of Scout.
Right, because she starts off in the book very young and very innocent and naive.
Yes.
And as the book progresses, she's 6 all of a sudden, or 8, excuse me.
Something
Right.
in there.
And it's just her development is just off the charts.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
they don't make movies like that anymore, do they? Where every word is measured, every light is trained, every grimace, every turn of the shoulder is written down and analyzed.
There's a sense of timing and pacing that allowed that film to represent the time and place where the story took place in a way that now everything's very fast and quick cutting. And
I think another thing they did an amazing job on that movie because it aligned perfectly with the book.
yes.
There's not a lot of nuances in it,
Right,
and there's not a lot of things you can say, oh, wait, that's not at all what happened in the book.
right. It was a faithful adaptation.
It really was, and they don't make a lot of movies like that either.
Yeah, true.
Funny
True.
thing is, and you mentioned this in your remarks, it's black and white,
Mm-hmm.
and it was made in the 50s or the 60s,
60s,
early
yeah.
60s.
Yeah, yeah.
It didn't have to be black and white, but
No.
the producer director decided with black and white because that would better convey the message.
Yes.
And I found that, I realized in my own self
Yeah.
that it would not have been the same movie had
No.
it been in color.
No. It was about the starkness of moral choice, and black and white conveyed that perfectly.
And your analysis that day and your discussion of it now today, Marlene,
Yeah.
just suggests to me that there's so much value in movies. There's so much under the hood, under the surface.
Absolutely.
So much that psychology, and you're really grabbing at people's minds.
Absolutely.
There's
And their
no
hearts.
medium, and their hearts.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
about them.
Yeah.
And some of the Chinese movies, Alison Connors
Mm-hmm.
spoke of the Chinese movies back in the 30s, and you knew. I don't remember how much detail she gave about the way this affected the people.
Right.
But it was clear that these movies had a huge effect on the
Yeah.
people.
Absolutely.
And To Kill a Mockingbird, there was a message there.
Yes.
What you call it, ethical.
Yes, but it wasn't. But it wasn't preachy. Part of the message was conveyed, and this was a good filmmaker, by the way the film was done, by the way that shots were composed, by the camera work, by the choice of black and white, by the pacing of the editing. All of those things are part of the storytelling too. It's not just the words.
I think it definitely conveys an emotion. I think what's really interesting also is that Scout, whenever it was written, Scout's a female, and this
Yes.
is in the 30s.
Yes.
And it's not typical for a young lady in the 30s to have worn the type of clothes that she wore
Yes.
and to have acted the way she did.
Yes.
So for them to have been true to that, they could have easily as cast a boy
Yes.
to fill that role.
Yes.
True.
Yes.
She was like tomboy.
She was a tomboy.
She was very much a
Yeah,
tomboy, and
right.
she hung out with
Yeah.
her brother and the neighbor, and
she beat kids up. That was
Right,
part of
that
her
was her
persona.
life, yeah.
Right.
And that scene on the steps out in front of the jail,
Yes.
where
Yes.
she dispersed the crowd using her father's wisdom,
Yes.
Right.
things she had learned from him. That was just
Yeah.
beautiful.
well,
Yeah.
Atticus did an amazing job in raising this daughter throughout the book and the movie,
Yes.
where he really gave her a sense of self and a sense of worth.
Yes. Yes.
And in the
Yeah.
30s, that's just spectacular because how many fathers did that?
Here you talk about this, Mildred. It makes me and Marlene. It makes
Yeah.
me think that, these experiences of going to the movies are enriching
Absolutely.
beyond what we
Yes.
realize.
Yeah, for sure.
We go there, we think it's just another movie, but it's not just. It's leaving a tattoo on our minds
Yeah.
forever.
Good one.
And in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. and now I think we'll take a short break so my heart can recover.
Okay.
We'll be right back after this break. Stay right there. This is ThinkTech with Marlene Booth and Mildred Schwartz talking
Jay's
about
forgetting my name.
the film industry in Hawaii. Stay there. Be right back. We haven't really covered ACM. We have to cover that now.
Okay.
What, ACM?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. So in the second block, let's do that.
Okay.
I mean, in addition,
Right.
we'll start with how you got involved.
Okay.
We'll talk about your movies, then we'll talk about ACM.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I've got statistics
We
for
can
you.
never cover the material.
And you were part of its beginning, right?
Hmm?
You played a role in some of the early ACM stuff. I think you wrote the copyright agreement. I
Oh.
don't remember.
I did. I might.
I've been told.
Yeah, this will be 2 minutes maybe. But anyway, I'm learning here today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm learning that it's the most, you can take all the other media. Last night my wife and I watched Mitt Romney's wife speak.
Yeah.
And she was pretty persuasive. I thought she was Did you see it?
No.
Well prepared, you know, and she was Leave It to Beaver.
Okay.
You know, she was a perfect American wife.
Right.
It was too perfect to believe.
Right. So is he.
And in fact, you know,
Yes,
she said at the
you're
end, it is too perfect to believe. I've had some serious medical problems and all this. But I thought to myself, whatever kind of impression she could leave on me, it's nothing what a movie would leave on me.
Right.
Did you see the movie about Ai Weiwei?
I want to see it. Is it gonna? Do you know how long it's gonna be here? It's on my. No, you saw
But
it.
it started only a few days ago,
Yeah,
so it should
you've
be a
seen
while.
it already.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been
Over the
dying to
weekend.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of film, I'm not so sure that it's got high production values. I mean,
Right.
it's
Right. It was
okay,
a brand new filmmaker. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's a takeaway on it? What do you leave with when you're done? Sometimes, sometimes a film that's maybe not so cinematographically
No,
beautiful
it's about
is,
this artist who's a magnificent artist who gets beat up really bad by the Chinese government.
He's a dissident. He speaks
Oh,
out.
okay.
Yeah. And he's a dissident. And he tells you. Well,
With your host, Jay Fidell of Fidell Attorneys at Law.
okay, we're back. You knew we'd come back, and here we are. We had a wonderful discussion during the break. We always have great discussions here on ThinkTech during the break. You wish you could listen to our breaks. With Mildred and Marlene, we talked about Ai Weiwei, which is playing in Kahala theaters now. And it's a fantastic movie about a fantastic artist by that name, Ai Weiwei, and how he challenges and literally sticks his finger at the Chinese government and how they get him.
Again and again.
Well, he spent 81 days in jail just a year or two ago, and that softened his resolve.
Hit the price of art.
The price of dissidency.
Mm-hmm.
He's a total dissident, and he's a great hero, a great and courageous man. And this movie shows you him. It's biographical about him. It's worth seeing to see what happens. You know, it's the Emile Zola human experiment. To see what happens. You want to challenge the Chinese government? Go ahead, try it, see what happens. And what you think happens, happens. Don't do this at home.
Right.
He did it at home.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But
Right.
he lived at least 10 years in New York City. He's world famous. He's the guy that did the bird's nest in the Olympics. And he refused to go. He protested
Wow.
by not going to his own work. Anyway, it's an interesting movie. So let's talk about how you got involved in film.
Okay.
Marlene. You're an ordinary person, and then one day
One day she woke up and said, "This is what I'm going to do."
we want to know about that day.
It almost did happen like that. I had, in my era, I was brought up to think that women could do only a few different things. They could be teachers, they could be nurses, they could be hairdressers, and my horizons were not very broad. But
Marlene went against the grain.
I went against the grain. I stumbled into going against the grain. I was once in a position where I couldn't get a job as a camp counselor. And someone said, "What else would you like to do?" And I said, "Make movies."
You'd
And
be a great camp counselor.
I was a
You
good
would
camp
be, you
counselor. Thank you. I'll call on you both when I need recommendations.
Anytime.
Thank you. I'd never said out loud that I wanted to make films, and suddenly that was the sentence that came out of my mouth. And having said that, I had to follow through, and ended up landing my first film job.
Was it something that you had thought about before, even though you hadn't said it?
Not that I was aware of. But I said it. A friend gave me 3 names to contact. This was in
Jobs?
in New York, yeah, for possible jobs. And I got a job. I was in New York for a month of a summer and landed a film job. And when I went in the first day and started writing a script and looking at rushes, I thought, this is home.
You fell in love.
I fell in love. I fell in
Awesome.
love. And it felt connected to things I'd done as a young kid.
Did you feel like you needed more training to do that, or were you right at home automatically?
Both.
Yeah. Well, what about it was magnetic for you?
I think the ability to just to be given the freedom to tell stories, and to be taken seriously as a storyteller. I think I still feel that's at the essence of what it is about this craft.
Is it that you were already a storyteller and that you had a skill or
Jay, she was a camp counselor. Of course she was a storyteller.
around. Well, that's true. Around the campfire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right. That's right.
But did you feel that you were a storyteller and this would give you greater leverage in telling stories? Or did you feel that you were not a storyteller and this would allow you to tell stories?
I think it was probably closer to the second, that I felt as though this was a context. You know, when I was little, I used to put on puppet shows with one of my cousins. And I felt like, here I am, back with my cousin doing puppet shows. It just felt like a comfortable venue that had always been play. And the fact that play could become work, and that I could get paid for it even, was remarkable. It's still remarkable.
What did
It
it
is still
feel like when you
remarkable.
saw your first film? And your words that you had written?
Well, you know, to see us that summer, I wasn't doing the filming so much as I was writing a script. It was pretty terrific. It was pretty, you know. But to think that that something I felt that I could do without training at that point, really. Although in some ways, learning to be an English teacher was training for writing
training
script.
is constant, I think,
Yeah,
in anything that
right.
you do. But just
Yeah.
coming into it like that, you know, just. What was it like when you saw it on the big screen?
Oh, the big screen. Well, that was a while
Okay.
after that first summer job. Very cool, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, somewhere between there and I guess a few years later, you got into your first movie, your
Yes.
first documentary. It's you're a
Yes.
documentary person, right?
I am.
Okay. Why?
I like people. I like talking to people and hearing their stories. And you know, everybody has a story. You stand in line at the grocery store and you think the people in front of you in line and the people behind you in line have stories, and we don't ask them about who they are. We want Mitt Romney's story, we want Ann Romney's story, but what about the person in front of you at Safeway?
Yeah.
What goes on with them? What about the person who helps you check your bag at the airport?
That's why we do radio shows, you know. We
Yeah.
want to find out that person's
That's
story.
That's right.
We want to learn more about
That's
that
right.
person.
That's right.
So okay, so there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
But what about, you know, every documentary, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Charles Ferguson one
Yeah.
about Inside Job
Right.
2 or 3 years ago, which I
Right.
consider a wonderful,
It's a wonderful
excellent documentary.
It's a terrific film.
There's a message in every film,
Yes.
whether it's Gregory Peck
Yes.
or Charles Ferguson.
Yes.
There's a message. So are you looking for accuracy as a documentarian?
Of course you're looking for accuracy,
But
but
are you looking to send a message? Which one? Or both?
I think you're looking to. I'm looking. I'm very interested, even when I cover issues, to see the way that an issue touches a person. And so, what I'm looking for is what motivates somebody to do what they do. What motivates somebody to care about rail or to not care about rail? What's at the bottom of that? What makes them tick?
Yeah.
So, is that a message? You know, the message may be what's important to you in life. And that tells me something about what's important to me in life. I learned, you know, we learn from, we're all walking
we're all
textbooks.
connected,
Yeah. So,
Well, I think what's interesting is as time goes by, the notion of learning what's on the other guy's mind, the person online
Yeah.
in Safeway
Yeah.
and all that,
yeah,
becomes more important because in the nuclear community, nuclear world,
yeah,
we don't have as much family,
right,
and we don't have as many deep friends,
Right.
deep friend relationships.
right,
We don't have those stories, and the film helps us
right.
get those stories. It
Right.
enriches our lives.
No, I think that's right.
Even fiction or nonfiction,
Right.
there's always a true message in there
Yes,
somewhere.
It
yes,
gets you connected.
yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
And I think in a world of social media where what we do now is we
We tweet and we Facebook.
we tweet and we Facebook. We can put it all, in 140 characters?
Right, or less.
It's got no depth.
It's got no depth.
And so, you know, I think, you know, you wonder why movies didn't go away when television came around.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I don't think movies will go away ever.
I hope not.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you just get something out of a movie that you don't get out of television. You can
Yes.
spend 2 hours in front of a screen,
Yeah.
get connected with the characters, and then have a takeaway piece.
Right.
Whether it's
Yeah.
emotional or mental, just on some level you're walking away with different ideas, maybe even a different point of view.
Right. Well, that's the remarkable thing. It's not only that you can learn the story and tell the story, but you can have an effect on the way millions of people, maybe billions of people think in the world today.
Yeah.
Like Alison Connor's movies from
Right.
the 30s.
Right.
You have effect on people. I mean, what greater satisfaction? There's
Right.
there's a gratification there.
For
I mean,
sure.
we all want to have effect on other people.
Right.
I think.
Right.
So, Yiddle in the Middle.
That was one of my films, not my first, but
Oh, it's not your first.
No, no,
Oh,
no,
Tell
no.
us about your early films.
Well, my films have in certain ways followed autobiographical interests.
And so,
So
you
the-
grew up in Iowa.
I grew up in Iowa. I did grow up in Iowa.
So
Yes.
how does that
Didn't
fit
everybody
in?
grow up in Iowa?
Well, you know.
Many did. You'd be surprised. Many in Hawaii did.
Well, you know, we have it all, right?
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
So how did your growing up in Iowa, and you're in Middle America, affect how you see the world?
I think it affected it profoundly. I was, well, to leap ahead to Yiddle in the Middle, which was the later film that I did. Yiddle in the Middle is my own story about growing up Jewish in Iowa. So that was the view of somebody who was an outsider wishing very much to be an insider. And I would say that that perspective colors everything I do. Everything I do as a filmmaker, everything I am as a person. There's both a sense in Iowa of salt of the earth, wonderful values and morals, which still applies. And there's also a sense of a kind of homogeneity that if you're not part of that homogeneity can be tough to figure out how to get a piece of
How
that.
do you fit in?
To figure out how you fit
Right.
in. Yes, exactly. And that became a challenge.
So
Yeah.
the films that you made before
Yes.
led up to that.
Yes.
How does Yiddle in the Middle express a desire, on the outside to get in?
How does that film express a desire to
Yeah.
fit in? Well, I think
Was it a Jewish thing, or was
Yeah.
it just Iowa? What was it?
It was both of those things. I think it was also the time I was growing up, the 50s and 60s. There wasn't a lot of talk about difference. People did not want to be different.
Everybody
from one
wanted
another.
to fit in.
We did. We wanted to fit in very much,
Mhm.
and that was a matter for me of learning a public language. The language of my home did not align perfectly with the language of what you would call, if you pardon the expression applied to Iowa, the streets.
In
It's
Middle
hard to
America.
imagine that in Iowa.
Yes.
Then or now. But I had to learn. We were talking earlier, Mildred, about your being bilingual.
Yes.
It was a certain bilingualism, although not a totally. These were two different Englishes, but one was my home English, one was my public English. I know the film that I did in Hawaii about Pigeon, the
We'll
voice
talk
of
about
Hawaii,
that.
also looked at those two issues of language. So I think that language is really an important piece. How do you assert your personhood in public in a way that is honest to who you are, but also doesn't have you leaping out from everybody else?
Ooh, there's a question. It's going to take us a minute or two
That
to
is.
cope with that. We'll take a break to do it, okay?
Okay.
We'll be right back. Stay there. This is ThinkTech. We have Marlene Booth and Mildred Schwartz. We're talking about filmmaking in Hawaii. We'll
Stay
be right
tuned.
back. We're running out of time.
We're running out of time?
No.
We're almost finished already.
Oh, are we? Oh.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That must have been really tough for you. Is there a large Jewish population
No.
in Iowa?
No, there
Okay.
is not. There is not.
So then that was just really difficult. Christmases and all of
You
the
know,
Christian
all of
holidays.
that was handleable. It was much more when you talked about yourself and the things that were meaningful to you. There was a sense of critiquing the standard way of talking. There was a kind of
Okay.
look askance.
Right.
Don't use that word for your grandmother. Okay.
It's a persona thing then
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
community.
Yeah. And my reaction to it.
So Pigeon is a natural
Who knew?
part
Yeah.
of the track.
Who knew? Absolutely. Yeah, I think so.
Convention Center is Hawaii's convention center. The Hawaii Convention Center is honored to partner with many members of our local community and to host world-class conventions and events from around the world, such as the recent APEC conference, many of whom provide special conference rates and opportunities for local attendees. For more information about the Hawaii Convention Center, visit hawaiiconvention.com. ThinkTech Radio is also brought to you by
So we're talking
Man,
about
this guy Jay just talks.
we're going to get somebody else's voice on there. I'm trying to
You
work
need,
on
yeah,
that.
you need someone else's.
With music. We're going to go to
ACM.
Pigeon.
Pigeon.
You want to
Okay.
talk more about Pigeon, or
Can we also do 3 generations of working women? 3 generations of working women?
Yeah. The double burden. Yeah.
Yes.
okay, sure,
Because I'd like to tie in Junior League a little bit there.
sure. And then we'll go to ACM. And I mean, ACM is like one of those best kept secret kinds.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So we should talk a little about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then women.
Okay.
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 You like this music?
That's great.
Dancing
You
in
can
our
d-
chair.
You can dance to it.
We're having so much fun in these breaks. Anyway, we're
We're
back.
dancing in our chairs.
This is ThinkTech talking about movies and film in Hawaii and elsewhere with Marlene Booth from ACM and Mildred Schwartz, my co-host. So let's go back to Pigeon.
Okay.
Pigeon seems to be related to what you were talking about
Yes.
in terms of developing an outside-in look and in terms of developing a language by which you connect to other people in the community.
Yes.
So it sounds like an intersection film. Am I right?
For me, it was. For me, it was. I mean, I certainly wasn't aware of that initially as I was working in the film, but as I learned more about Pigeon and the place of Pigeon speakers in Hawaii, I thought, I know this.
What was the thought pattern in saying, I'm going to do a movie about Pigeon?
It came from my co-producer, my late co-producer, Kanalu Young. So it wasn't, I was looking for a film about Hawaii, and Kanalu, who is part Native Hawaiian and lived here, said, let's look at Pigeon. And
Well,
then- go ahead.
the film serves an important historical purpose because every time you look, there's less pigeon. You
Yes.
know, in 10 or 20 years, there'll be a lot less than it is now.
Although people have been saying that for a long time.
Touche.
think
You know more
it's-
about it than me, so.
I think it's part of the culture in Hawaii, and I think that it gets integrated into people's everyday lives with things like can, no can,
Right?
and they're very small
Yes.
words,
Yeah.
but they have a big significance, I think, culturally for a lot
Yes.
of locals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, absolutely. Right.
So you had to do a lot of research in that
Yes.
film, and you had to talk to a lot of people, and
Yes.
you had to learn, a part of the community that most people really don't get to touch.
Yes. Yes.
So how do you come out of it then? I mean, how do you feel about what Pigeon does in the Hawaiian society, in the Hawaii society?
Well, Pigeon began as a sort of makeshift language on the sugar plantations, largely. So it's not necessarily a language that people on the plantations, had they been given full access to English, that they would have chosen. But it developed by happenstance, and then after a few generations, it really standardized. Then it became a mother tongue for people, and at that point, it becomes the language of home, the language of mom, the language of heart.
Yeah.
And then after a while, you have access. It took a few generations.
Yeah.
To standard English, and you don't want to give up the mother tongue. And frankly, for lots of people, being back with extended families, they don't want to let you give up that mother tongue, because showing off your college English makes it look as though you're leaving Hawaii behind,
Yeah.
and leaving a cultural past behind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's the language of heart,
yeah,
and it distinguishes people who were born and raised in
Yes.
situations they learn it, and
yeah,
everybody else. But what's
Right.
interesting in Hawaii, see if you agree with me,
yeah.
is there isn't really a lot of second language going on here. I mean, formal language.
Well,
You don't find a lot of people who speak conversational Japanese. They may speak Pigeon, but they
Yeah.
don't speak conversational Japanese or Chinese or Korean, whatever it is.
right.
Second generation kind of goes away, but they hold on to the Pigeon.
Yes. Well, Pigeon is unique to Hawaii, so it's an authentic mark of belonging here. And I don't know. I think a lot of my students who are second generation still speak, and if grandma and grandpa were speakers of another language, I think they still have some conversational ability in that other language.
I think
too.
that goes for anywhere in the world, though. If you have a second generation
Yeah.
person and they're completely integrated into the U.S. culture,
Yes.
they will take that culture and drop their native tongue. or their mother tongue.
Right,
Sure.
And it's just a part of fitting in.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So, what kind of response did you get on the mainland to the film? I know it played on PBS.
Right.
What,
Right.
what did people think on the mainland? Did you get any feedback?
Yeah, I got a lot of feedback. I still get feedback because it still plays.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the interesting feedback. People often said, I didn't know this about Hawaii. Others said, it's my story too. Substitute for Pigeon, my language of home. And so thank you for talking about that. I mean, Pigeon is a minority language, and in the way we all see ourselves, there's a hierarchy. Some languages are credited with being more cool, more important than others, right? Nobody would object to their children going to a French after-school program.
But not a pigeon school.
I don't think so.
I agree.
But the experience of pigeon is music, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
There's a music to it that you don't find in English, certainly, or in other languages.
Right, right.
The other thing I was going to, what is the message in the movie? I mean, as we talked, there's always a message of some kind.
Right.
What message were you actually trying to deliver, and did it get delivered?
Well, again, I try not to start out my films with the imperative, what is the message
No,
that
it
I will
evolves.
deliver?
Right.
It evolves. But what I learned in the course of making it is that people make judgments about language and about the languages that we speak, and that in fact, so there's strong opinion in Hawaii. Pigeon should be encouraged. Pigeon should not be encouraged. That's fine. It's an important debate to have. But when it happens in public education or private education even, and teachers are judging the learning ability of students based upon the language that they bring to the classroom, that's when it becomes a problem. So
It's profiling.
it's profile.
It
It is
is.
profiling. It is absolutely profiling.
And at such a young age, it's very
Yes.
impactful.
Yes, no,
Yes.
absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. So I think the message that I took away was to regard Pigeon as a linguistic ability that a student comes to school with is the right way to do it, and to then regard English as a second language. Then you give a child a sense that they are competent, that they have language
Right. They
ability,
have
that they
value.
can learn, that they have value. So I think that was the takeaway message.
So
that's great.
you spoke earlier about how people contact you and say, "This is my story," except
Yes.
that it's not Pigeon.
Yes.
Do you feel that you related to some of these stories in the same way? Because you had your home language and you
Right.
had your
Right.
other language, your outside language.
Right. I think I very much think that there's a way of speaking, I'm using it right now, that I acquired in college that gives me a kind of, college-educated sounding English. And
Right.
in that, any trace of those markers that would identify me with other things, with people I love and places I care about, got erased. And I think that's a problem we have with languages.
I went to Queens College, in
Yeah.
the early 60s. My first class was a guy, Bornstein was his name. It was speech. And he said, all you guys in my class, you all have the New York accent. He said, never lose it. It will take you far. You'll be told you should lose it.
Right.
Don't lose it.
Right. But that's an unusual message for then and
It
now.
is, it
for now.
is,
Yeah.
it is.
Everybody really wants to be Americanized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
The power of assimilation. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
what's your next movie? You got a couple in the pipeline, and are they? I guess when you cross the Rubicon, as I recall, on the Pigeon movie, you went digital. That was a completely digital experience. Huh?
It's still painful. It's still painful,
sorry
Jay.
to ask
Sorry.
about it.
Yes,
She
I
misses
did.
film.
Yes, I miss film terribly. My hands can no longer speak. The next film. So my co-producer and the person who came up with the idea for the Pigeon film,
Okay.
Kanalu Young, who unfortunately passed away while we were working on that film.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Is the topic of my next film, for which I have research and production funding from Pacific Islanders in Communications. Bless them.
That's
Well,
great.
congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm looking at, he was quadriplegic from a diving accident at age 15 and learned over time his anger dissipated over time slowly to learn with being disabled, and particularly to draw from his native Hawaiian culture, values that enabled him to live as a disabled person with integrity and meaning.
Wow.
And that's what I'm looking at.
This is Kanal Young
Kanal Young.
himself.
He,
This is
yes,
the story
indeed.
of his life.
It's the story of his
Talk
life.
about the power of film and cinema.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there's a movie. It's popular now, and I can't remember the name. It's about a French fellow who is quadriplegic. It's a very good movie.
Yes.
It's in French, and it's an African is his helper, and it's the relationship of how the African helps him.
I think I've
it's
heard
a-
about
it's a
this.
very
Yeah, I don't
good
know
movie.
that. Yeah, right.
But you know, to me, what I learned from that and what I expect is involved in your movie coming up is we are all in our own way paraplegic. We are all disabled,
Yes.
or we should at least be able to relate to those who
Yes.
are.
Yes.
And it's the essential condition somehow.
Somehow, and what he learned, because he was also a PhD in history, and Hawaiian history was his area, was that his kuleana, as he called it, was the ability to ask for help. That there was something noble about being able to ask for help, and that the people who helped him were ennobled by that as well.
Help is a hard thing to ask for
Oh boy!
sometimes.
Oh boy!
And it
yes.
really takes an attitude change.
Yeah.
I'm sure he had to go through a self-attitude adjustment to succeed.
It took years. Yeah.
This is a
Yeah.
complex movie, Marlene.
I hope so.
Thank you.
We can't wait to watch it.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about women. In fact, I think we're going to take a break first. Why do I
Okay.
feel that way?
Well, we'll come back after the
You
break.
hear
We'll come
music
back.
in your
Stay tuned.
ears.
And then we'll talk about
Yes.
women, all right?
Okay.
This is ThinkTech. Marlene Booth is with me. Marlene Schwartz. Mildred Schwartz is with me.
tongue-tied.
We're talking about film,
And
film
language.
in Hawaii, and language.
Yes.
We're trying to do a radio show with language. We'll be right back. Stay there.
And we'll get ACM in. This is our last
Yes.
15 minutes?
Last
Well,
15.
more like 8 or 9 by the time it's finished.
We're
All right. Yeah.
That's the problem with these shows. They go so quickly.
Well, you do well. You both do very well.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, terrific.
I'm all right.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Quite good.
Oh,
Quite
thanks.
good.
That's good.
We'll get
right
better.
on, right on, yeah.
That's really
You're pretty
interesting. I'm
good
really
too,
interested to see.
actually.
You are. You're amazing.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm really interested to see your
Flexible.
movie. That you have to be.
Thank you. Hardly anything's been filmed yet, but yeah.
That sounds
We'll get it.
quite an undertaking.
Yeah.
So what do you guys want to talk about women? I'm
Well, Marlene did a
quite
movie
short
called Three
on that.
Generations of Working Women.
Working mothers.
Working mothers.
Yeah, 3 generations of working mothers.
Inter-Island Solar Supply, one of the oldest and most experienced renewable energy equipment distributors in the world. For the past 4 decades,
So you're very interested in
design
race
contractors
Yes.
and culture.
And there are different
differences.
races in the film. Yeah.
top-tier clean
Yeah.
energy
Well, I think
equipment,
overall, I think there's a
Pattern here
Right.
in my work. Yeah. Yeah.
That's your underlining platform.
Yeah. Overlooked. Yeah.
Maybe we'll
Look
save
again.
the last few minutes for ACM, which we didn't cover.
Okay.
installing the best built and backed energy systems and parts on the market. Inter-Island Solar Supply.
Okay, we're going back.
You're listening to ThinkTech Radio's Technology and Media Wednesday with your host, Jay Fidell of Pendant Fidell Attorneys at Law.
Okay, we're back. This is ThinkTech, Tech and Media Wednesday, and we have Madame la Professeure Marlene Booth with us.
Oui, oui.
She's also a woman, by the way. I want to be clear about that. And we have Mildred Schwartz as co-host.
Hello.
And we want to talk a little about, the woman's side of making films, the woman's side of Marlene's career.
Well, I'm here representing the Junior League of Honolulu, and so I'm
Yes.
very interested in some of your films that have concentrated on women, and
Yes.
also about your struggles as a woman in the film industry.
Yes.
When you first started out, 70s, correct?
Yes. Yes.
How was that perceived, you being in film?
Well, women were just beginning to get into film in numbers. And when I was in film school, I can remember my male counterpart saying, "Let me do the camera work for you." And of course I fought and said, "No, yes, maybe you would do it better than I can do it, but I'll never learn if I don't
Right.
do it myself." So there was certainly that sense. It was certainly an oddity to go around carrying a big camera on your shoulder
And being a woman.
and being a woman.
Right.
People looked at you oddly.
They wanted to struggle to take that camera away.
Yes, right,
Yeah.
right.
So
right.
I do have a question. So you
Yes.
did a film called Three Generations of Working Mothers.
Yes, the
Can
double
you talk
burden.
to me a little
yeah.
bit about that?
Yes. Well, again, it had an autobiographical component. I became a filmmaker, and then I became a mother some years later, and
then you had to juggle.
Then I had to juggle, and I wasn't quite sure how to do that because my mother, having been a mom in the 50s and 60s and 40s, didn't work out of the home. And so, and though some of my aunties did, I hadn't really seen firsthand how to balance those two positions. So I did the film to look at that, and what I realized in doing it was those of us for whom being working mothers was new tended to be middle class and more than middle class. Women who were lower middle class and working class had been working mothers all along, and again, it was somebody we weren't paying attention to. So I looked at 3 families where there were living 3 generations of mothers who had worked in their time. So a grandmother, her daughter, and her granddaughter, all of whom had been working mothers.
And how did that affect their relationship with their community or with their husbands?
Well, in some cases, the husbands were absent. In other cases, the husbands were pleased that the women were working and bringing in extra income. In different generations, the world at large did not look kindly upon women who were working.
Right. In some areas, it still doesn't. They still don't.
That's right. That's right. And it's still an issue that garners lots of ink. I thought when I made that film, and I finished it, I think in '91, that it would be a film that would be topical for 5 years, 10 years.
Right.
But you know what? It's still a topical film. I
It
can't
really is.
quite believe that, but it is.
And I think that even in the U.S., sometimes mothers who work are looked down upon.
Yes.
They're not there for the children, or
Right.
they're not doing this.
Right.
But man, we can juggle.
We can juggle.
Yeah.
We can juggle.
Well, is it fair to say that these days now, the industry is balanced, that there are as many women as there are men?
I think in Hollywood, for directors, the answer is no.
Mm.
In my line of work, in documentary film, the answer is probably yes.
Why is that, Marlene? Do you have a reason?
Training,
Well,
empowerment.
no, I think we're trained. It may be that it's harder. I teach at the Academy for Creative Media at the University of Hawaii.
The AMC.
ACM.
excuse me.
It is still the case that in, for instance, my documentary production class, there are 17 students, 4 of them are women. Why
Wow.
is that? Why? It's an advanced production class. Why are only 4 women?
Why is that?
I think there's a perception, as there was in my early days in film school, that it's equipment heavy and women don't do equipment. Now, first of all, the equipment doesn't weigh that much anymore.
No, it's lighter all the time.
It's lighter all the
I
time.
mean, you
Women,
could use your phone if you really
you
needed
could,
to.
you absolutely could.
People
Although,
do.
although your grade might be lower
Oh, right.
if
The
you
quality
did that.
may not be
yes,
there.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. It's perception. It's not reality.
Yeah.
But I think the women sometimes self-judge as much as others judge
Yeah.
about them.
Well, can we skip to ACM in the
Let's skip.
next
Yeah.
four,
Let's
4 or
gallop.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Galloping to ACM,
Yes.
one of the best kept secrets at the
Yes.
UH.
Yes.
Where is it anyway?
Where at UH?
I'd like to come and say hi one of these days.
Come and say hi. We're on the Manoa campus. Most of us are in Crawford Hall,
Okay.
near Hawaii Hall. We have a whole lot of majors. We have 180 majors.
Be sure you bring lunch.
So
yeah.
what I mean, you say majors.
Yes.
So it's a major field in a VA. Is that what it is?
You get a BA. As
get a BA.
of 2000, when was it? As of 2009, May 2009, we began offering a degree in creative media.
Mm-hmm.
So our students take a combination of production classes and critical studies classes. They can write about film. They can analyze film. They can make films. They can be animators. We have an animation stream.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
That's great.
And they're highly creative people. And our hope is that they are beginning to tell stories of Hawaii, stories of their own experience.
Do we have any notable graduates who are out there, you know, aside from the faculty like you? But do we have any notable graduates who have made their bones? Bones is a bad word to use these days.
They're Mark. How about Mark? Yes. How about Mark?
Mark, okay.
One of the most notable is a graduate of a few years ago. It was before we were a major, so he took all the ACM classes that were possible to take. His name is Tai Sangha. He made a film actually when he went to graduate school to get an MFA. The film was called Stones. It's a Hawaiian language film about a Hawaiian language legend, and it played at Sundance. And he has been part of the Sundance Native American and Indigenous writing and production program. He is a star. He's just 30 or 31. He's somebody to look at. And we have many others in his wake, too numerous to name, and if I begin to name, I'll leave out too many. But keep your eye on Ty and those who came.
So how do we become involved in getting into the movies and getting into film?
Well,
do we have to go to ACM?
We do have to go to
ACM.
ACM.
You're certainly welcome. You can get a second BA in creative media. I would happily have you in my class. But you have to show up on time and do all the work.
And turn your cell phone off.
Turn your cell phone off, yes, at the beginning of class.
Not asking much.
There are classes that are held all the time at an outreach college program called Pacific New Media.
Okay.
And that is one way to get involved in media. HIF this summer began offering a class taught by one of my colleagues, Lisette Flannery, in filmmaking. I don't know what it's called, but it's like filmmaking for those over 60.
Oh, nice.
Yes, yes. So there are many ways to get involved and to learn more about film.
Well, it sounds like you know, it's one of those things where it's now available to the average person.
It certainly is.
And you can find your stories, connect at the supermarket, what have you.
Yes.
Tell your stories, enrich your life, enrich the life of the people that you interview if you're a documentarian, and then enrich the life of the people who see the movie.
Yeah, that's
Convey
right.
emotion and change their minds.
Yes.
What could be better?
It's a great thing to do,
It
especially if you're over 60. Nobody in this room would qualify for
No, I can't. I don't
Not
see
yet,
it.
no.
But that, you know, that offers a huge benefit for people to be able to do that. You know, it's one of those things in life that you can actually recapture as you get older, and maybe you understand it better as you get older.
Yes.
So this is a great gift. Do you think the school will offer a graduate degree also?
It's funny that you should say that. We just had a faculty meeting this morning, and we're talking about that as one of the things to consider as we look ahead 5 years.
Oh, that'd be great.
So ask me back in 5 years, and I'll let you know.
You know, talking
You don't
about.
want to come sooner?
Oh, all right. I'll come next week.
Okay.
No, we have to follow this discussion, Marlene. You know, I mean, what you're doing is really enabling, because I don't think the community can exist without the film community can properly exist. You know, get its marks?
Yes, right.
Without having a film school.
I agree.
You legitimize it at least.
Well, and Hawaii has so much to offer.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So many people come and shoot films and then leave.
Yes.
Why don't we have our own community
Well,
here?
and that is really the point of setting up the Academy for Creative.
Thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I think The Descendants was an example, however you want to feel about the production values and all that. Descendants was an example of one of those 1,000 stories that are specific to Hawaii.
Yes.
That you can find the story, make a film of it, give it to the world, and it's a great gift because they don't know about that.
Yes.
The same thing with Pigeon, actually.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
It's a gift to the world.
Thank you.
And so we still have 998
slots available.
Great stories.
Yes, right.
We can keep on going.
Yeah, we can.
Anyway, Marlene, I want to thank you for coming down. I want to thank you for being part of the program we had.
Well, thank you. My pleasure.
I want to follow up on this. You know, it's all about a follow-up at ThinkTech.
Yes.
We have to do it again and maybe again and see how the industry is doing. We don't want to let it fall off the side.
Okay, I drink to that.
So what is your advice to the people?
About what?
Getting into film. Do it or not?
Being successful.
Do it. Just you know, if you have a story to tell and feel as though the world really can't go another minute without hearing your story, do something about it. Figure out ways. There are plenty of ways to take classes here, to learn about filmmaking, to access equipment through Olelo, through lots of different media.
My mind is reeling.
Maybe
No pun intended.
Yes, right. Your reels
maybe
are really
Mildred's going to
right.
do it, I think. Maybe.
Yeah, I have a story to tell.
Yes,
Let's
yes.
tell it.
Tell those stories either through
I
fiction or
expect to see you in
documentary.
class, Jay.
Well, the same motivations that exist in doing a radio show exist in making a movie.
It's true.
See?
And
It's true.
Absolutely.
This is ThinkTech Wednesday on Tech and especially Media Today. We've been enjoying the time with Marlene Booth and Mildred Schwartz. We'll be back tomorrow with Asia in Review. Stay tuned to ThinkTech here on KGU. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha.